You guys, welcome back to the podcast. You guys, this is 6 months in the making. 6 months in the making. We have Aleric Heck here with us. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
This is such a blast. And we are not going to waste our listeners' time here at all. Whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, we are going to dive straight into the nitty gritty. The reality is there was this guy who I kept seeing his face online. And then I kept having friends like tag him and like mention him. And I'm like, who is this Aleric guy? Who is this guy? Come to find out, you have absolutely dominated the YouTube ad space, right? Which, as a mother of 4, I have serious feelings about YouTube and serious feelings about YouTube ads and my inability to choose what kind of ads come across my YouTube devices. And I thought, this is a guy that is such a force for good in the YouTube space. And so, of course, we had to bring you here on the podcast. It's taken us about 6 months to make our schedules align. And I just know that the timing must be right. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited as well.
It's going to be great. And we are going to dive straight in from zero. Like, if people don't know anything about you, they're really at ground zero. And they're like, who's this Aleric guy that Sarah's brought on? Now, this is the guy who I heard in his bio has generated over $300 million in sales using YouTube ads. How in the world did you get there?
Yeah, well, thank you. So, ultimately, I started out actually on YouTube 16 years ago. So totally different platform. I'll kind of walk you through the whole journey. But of course, what I really focus on now is helping all kinds of different businesses, and especially a lot of expert coaching, consulting style businesses as well, leverage the power of YouTube ads and YouTube channels to be able to get more leads and clients. And we'll talk about all of that. I'm happy to dive into some of the strategies, some of the different pieces. Yeah. But I actually got my start when I was pretty young. So I'm 28 now. I started on YouTube when I was 12 years old. I had a YouTube channel. I know. Yeah. 16 years ago, back in 2009. I started out, got an early start into the entrepreneurship side of things. And of course, the first few years was just kind of, seeing and starting to build things out. But basically, I created a YouTube channel back then where I was reviewing mobile apps. I was doing tech tutorials. My first big video to really take off was a complete beginner's guide to the iPhone. So I made a video showing how to use an iPhone for the first time, and it got over 1 million views. And that's over 1 million. And that was like, I was probably 14 or 15 at the time when that happened, which was pretty cool. And so I got excited about that. I was just showcasing the best, tech. And I realized that at that point, I had an opportunity to really have this be a full business. So I started, that YouTube channel like 16 years ago, but it really became a business maybe, 12 or 13 years ago. And I was doing that through high school and into college, basically creating these videos for every new iPhone that came out, for some of the latest apps. You probably, remember, like, I think a little over a decade ago, the apps, were like, that was huge. That was it's like what AI is now, or apps, then and all of that. And so everybody had an app, and all the developers, they'd reach out and I'd do a video. And, I ended up growing that channel to over 500,000 subscribers. And the channel actually still exists today. I hired a friend of mine and fellow tech enthusiast, this guy, Justin, to run the channel now, as I shifted my focus to the business side. But in college, that's when I read the 4-Hour Work Week. So, Tim Ferriss's book. I automated the business. So I pulled myself out of the day-to-day. So incredible. I hired a script writer, a video editor, somebody to do business development, to reply to emails. And once I was able to do that, I realized that I had an opportunity to look for the next thing. What was the next thing that I was really going to do and focus on? And that's when it actually kind of hit me, because I had an app developer that was sponsoring, one of my videos. So they paid me to do a video. I published a video. They got a bunch of downloads. Like, this is awesome. But then they asked, can you publish the same video next week on the channel? We want to double our results. And I had to tell them, like, hey, I don't want to take your money for that. Like, it's not gonna actually do what you think it's gonna do. Like, as you and I both know, right? Like, you can't just publish the exact same video on the same channel the next week and double the results. It just doesn't work like that. So, they're appreciative that I told them that. And I was, on it. I was like, hey, like, I don't want to just take your sponsorship money to do this again. Like, it's not going to work the way you want. So I said, well, what if we do this? What if we just take that same, like, it was like $500. What if we take that same money that you were going to pay me? We just put it into ads and, get more people to see this video. And I do that. And this was about a decade ago, actually, like exactly like a decade ago, because this is in 2015. I go and I run those ads, and they get thousands more downloads for their app. So now they're really excited, and we keep those ads going. Then they tell their developer friends who has another app, and I do that. And then there was a performance marketing company working with them. They call me up, and I still remember, like, they call me up. They're like, all right, Aleric, we want you to drop out of college, fly out to Silicon Valley, like join our team. You can run the YouTube ads division. They offered a lucrative, job offer and, a potential like, vested equity, things like that. And it was very tempting, but I turned it down because I realized, just like a lot, of people who are listening and watching this, especially, what the podcast is all about, right? It's like, that freedom, that autonomy that you have, right? I knew that I wanted to, be the king of my own castle instead of the knight in somebody else's. Yeah. And I was, born to be that entrepreneur. And that's what, what I decided to do. So I created AdOutreach. Originally, I was doing YouTube ads for mobile apps. So I tapped my network, drove millions of downloads across a variety of different apps. Then I shifted to the world, of different types of businesses. So we've had a variety of different businesses, but especially these days, a lot of coaching, consulting, and expert-based businesses. But we also have products, services, and software companies as well that we work with. And so, yeah, and then we just kind of ramped it up from there. And obviously there's a lot more to it than that. But, today, we've got an amazing team, got about 30-ish people on the team. We've worked with thousands of businesses over the last 9 years with AdOutreach. And and collectively generated hundreds of millions of dollars in
incredible
for our clients.
And in fact, I told you before the podcast, I'm like, that is the biggest revenue number we've been able to declare on the podcast in an intro. Like, congrats to you. That's a huge win because results speak for themselves, right? That you clearly have figured some things out. I want to back up a little bit. And I want to think about you in high school, middle school, age-ish, however your school system is broken up. What was it about you or your life that made you want to dive into the world of making money and making an impact? Or like, what were you like back then that brought you into that world?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So I think the big thing is I was always just passionate about a couple different things, technology and also helping people like understand it. So I was always the one kind of showing people, hey, here's how you use this, here's how you do that. And even with what we're doing with YouTube ads, like a lot of what we're doing is it's not just doing it for, we have clients that we have some agency stuff, but we also have a lot of training and education around YouTube ads. We have a hybrid model where we're helping our clients set up their ads. We're showing them how to do it. We've got our content where we're walking them through step by step. So I think that's one thing that I've always liked is, being able to make something that maybe seems a little bit more complex and distill it down into a simple part. I just get really passionate about it. And I've also always loved video. So, I remember I was filming videos. When I was a kid, I actually thought I wanted to be like a movie director, like a lot of, people who love video. But then I realized that, my real calling was, on the marketing side, the video side, helping all these businesses. But originally, I would film all these videos with like friends, and I had a video camera. I remember getting a video camera. There's a picture. I think I was reminiscing or put it on like, Facebook at one point. But basically, there's a picture of me when I'm like 6 or 7 years old with a video camera that's like, not like it's only a little bit smaller than my head, and it's kind of like I got like a video camera like as a little kid. Yeah, which is kind of funny. And I taught myself how to edit, Adobe, Premiere, and like that was back when it was like the disc set and everything. When I was 9, and then and I was doing all these different videos, publishing them, on and actually it was kind of funny because there was actually these sites where you would publish them, but if people didn't like them enough, they'd get taken down. So when YouTube came out, I was like, oh, I can just publish them and nobody's going to take down my video. I could just publish it and it'll be there. That was really exciting. And that's why I went, all into YouTube.
And I'm just fascinated by how young you were. I don't know why I can't let it go. But like, were you doing sports, or were you in band, or did you have tons of friends? Were you kind of a single friend person? Like, what was your world like while you're also starting to really bring in revenue from YouTube, which no teenager was doing back then?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a great question as well. So, honestly, so I was very involved in Boy Scouts. That was a big thing that I was doing.
Yeah.
Became like an Eagle Scout. Went all the way through that. I worked at a Boy Scout camp while I was in high school. So several summers there, and that was something that I was really involved in. And then I also loved creating these types of videos and being creative. Growing up, like obviously when I was younger, it was something that I didn't like as much, but now I see it. So basically I wasn't allowed to like play video games, or, have a lot of like, kind of that type of thing. Basically my parents kind of taught me to be creative and to create instead of consume. And I actually think that's a really good lesson. It's like, I think that you shouldn't be afraid of technology, and all of that, and kids having access to technology. It's just like, what are they going to do with it? And so spending time creating versus spending all the time consuming. And I think that's actually going to set people up really well. And that set me up really well. So I was still able to use technology, but I was really encouraged by my parents to use it to create versus using it to consume.
They were ahead of their time.
That's true. I'm very grateful to my parents. Yeah, they're fantastic. So yeah.
That is fascinating to me. And did all your friends know you were doing this? Was this like you were known as the kid down the street that's like figuring out the YouTube game? And like, was that part of your identity back then in a big way?
So it was. I think the way that I would put it is I was so the thing is, it was, but I don't think it's as popular. It was as popular then as it is now. So like now, maybe that would make you popular if you're successful there with the channel. So it didn't make me popular, but it also didn't make me not, like, at least in high school. I was just kind of, I was there. I had some, group of friends. I've always kind of had this like thing where I have like a few, kind of close friends. And then I know a lot of people. I'm just friendly with a lot of people. But I think that's, because I always like to just, treat everybody the best. That's the whole thing, right? It's like,
Right.
And so essentially, like, that's one of the big things that I had there. When I was in college, my freshman year of college, it definitely made me less popular. I was actually even bullied, which was kind of interesting. So
What?
yeah, I know. It was interesting. Like I was, when I was in college, I think it was just people didn't really understand. But like I basically wasn't going and partying. I wasn't, basically I didn't really drink until I was just about 21, and not even that much. Like I didn't really go to parties or whatever. So I was basically just, focusing on my classwork and focusing on my YouTube channel. That was the big thing. My YouTube channel is too pinnacle. Then I had my classwork, and then I also was running the Entrepreneurship Club at my university. And so essentially, which I did my freshman year too. I came in, ran for president, and was like, all right, I'm gonna build this, and
you did.
yeah, basically, which was kind of fun.
I mean, let me ask you kind of a mindset question. Do things? I know that you work hard, so I'm not at all referencing that you don't work hard. Do you feel like things work out for you?
So that's a great question. So I do feel like things work out for me because everything is working for me, right? So it's either a win or a learning lesson. That's a big thing that I have. I actually don't have I've got a coin over there, but I've got a coin that says win and learn on the other side. I actually had those made. Cool. We send them out to clients. I really love it because everything that you're doing is either going to be a win, that's a success, or it's going to be a learning lesson. And underneath on that coin said learn, but learning is winning, right? Because when you're learning, you're growing and winning. And so I think that the thing is that all the things I do, being successful, well, it doesn't literally mean it's all going to work out, but it's going to work out for me. There's definitely plenty of mistakes and failures and challenges that I've made along the way. And, and I try not to have regrets, but things that I would have done differently, knowing what I know now, but that's part of learning, right? So there's successes and there's learning. And I do think that's something I've learned more relatively over the last, few years, like really done a lot more reflecting on that. So maybe my answer in the past would have been a little bit different, but that's kind of how I refine it now, because I think that, you go to either extreme. If you just think everything you touch is going to turn to gold, well, it's not going to be the case, right? But also if you get into a negative mindset where you don't think things are going to work out, well, that's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. But then I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, some things work out, some things don't work out. Well, what if you flip that and say some things work out and some things you learn from? So ultimately that actually is happening for you to be able to learn, to be able to grow and compound what you're doing.
So you really are an optimist in the sense that I am always winning, whether that is by a very obvious win, right? Or whether that is through a learning experience, I am winning. So you're an optimist in that way.
Oh, 100%. I'm absolutely an optimist. So
I love it. I was raised by an optimist, and I think about how that blessed my life in so many ways in business. And so I love that kind of energy. And I want to zoom forward a little bit to your college days. And I'm fascinated about this idea of you getting this job offer of stability and of a lucrative paycheck and a consistent paycheck, right? Yeah. Which is not always the road of entrepreneurship, right? and being in Silicon Valley and being in California and like being in that kind of environment. And you declared that you walked away from that. You said, no, thank you. And you knew that you wanted to be the king of your castle, right?
Yeah.
How did you know that? Like what experiences had you been given that made you know I will not work for someone else?
Yeah.
Well, what brought you there?
I think there's multiple things. So there's the bigger picture things, there's the smaller things. So I think the bigger picture things is I knew I wanted to have my own business that was exponentially scalable. My YouTube channel wasn't necessarily exponentially scalable. Now, obviously, I think there's ways to do it. The way I was building it wasn't that way. Obviously, there are people now that have figured out how to do that. And I think if I had, put my mind to that, I could have figured that out as well. But basically, I was putting effort into the channel and I had leveraged myself with other team members, but it just wasn't, it wasn't the exponential growth I was looking for. And so what I was able to do was kind of visualize, wait a second, when I got that success with those apps and those ads, I got really excited because I saw that as the possibility for selling that. And I had already been just kind of fallen into selling, business to business type things to all these app developers. And I realized, wait a second, if I can turn around and show a case study to an app developer and say, hey, here's what I did. I can not only, be able to grow a much bigger business than what that paycheck would be, but also I wouldn't be limiting myself to, if I was to go and take that opportunity, everything that I do, I'm going to go all out, for that. If I had gone and taken that opportunity, it would have potentially sacrificed the time to be able to really dive in and build my own thing. And that's what I really started playing out in my head was, okay, let me, kind of look at the big picture of where that could go. And interestingly, at that point, I had automated my business enough where essentially, and also my coursework, my existing business, my YouTube channel and my coursework, that I realized I had time to build my business while I was there in college. I had all my classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This was like in my junior and senior year, and I graduated a little early. So like in that kind of time frame. So I basically had, all my classes 2 days of the week. And then I was doing client calls and sales calls on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then, and then basically I was also definitely putting a lot of stuff in the weekend too. And so I was just going all out, especially while I was there in college. Just to do everything I needed to do.
It's amazing. And I also love, and apologies for the camera delay. We'll see if the other one comes back on. But I'm fascinated by the idea that you didn't go all in as far as you quit this thing and then started something else fresh. Like you were very much kind of in the in-between, trying to, squeeze it into the cracks. And I think that that's a kind of a wise, maybe more secure way to move through entrepreneurship is, go all in for sure energetically, but sometimes you have to bridge the gap between being able to really build what you want. I'm also fascinated by the idea that you thought you could do it, right? I don't know how else to say it, but what's the advice that you give to people who feel like they're on the precipice of a big idea or on the precipice precipice of feeling called as an entrepreneur, and they just doubt whether they can do it?
Yeah. I think the advice that I would give is that, there's so much, opportunity that you have to be able to, achieve and do amazing things and really impact the world. And if you have a gift to share, like it's up to you to be able to go out there and share it with the people who need it. And I think the thing that gets people stuck is they're worried if they take action, they may fail. But if you flip it, it goes back to what we were talking about before. And really, there's only two true failures. The true failures is to either give up on what you're looking to do, or the failure to learn, which is a little bit more insidious because, if you actually have a few of these mistakes, but you're not learning from them, then that is also a problem too. So, that's also how it can get, you got to understand it. So you either win or you learn, but you want to learn from that thing. And so essentially, if you realize that, barring any type of health and, type thing, which hopefully, God forbid like that,
Right.
anything like that. But barring anything like that, if you are able-bodied, you are in control if you actually fail or not. Now, you might have setbacks or even severe setbacks, but you are in control if you give up or if you fail to learn, right? Edison went through 1,000 light bulbs to get the light bulb that we have today, right? And so, is that a failure or is it a success? At the end of the day, it's a success. So if you got to zoom out and look at that. And so ultimately, you have the opportunity to decide that you're going to continue and decide that you're going to look at it as you're either going to see the success and win, or you're going to have a learning lesson that can, lead to a future win.
Incredible. And through your experiences of facing failure, right? But I'm going to win at all costs kind of thing, whether that's an obvious win or a learning thing. Do you feel like you've had a mentor? Like, who do you point to as this is someone who has guided me, whether it's religious in nature, business in nature, like who have been some of those people for you?
Yeah. So definitely a lot of different people come to mind. One of them, like my first mentor that I worked with, Taylor Welch. I don't know if you know Taylor.
Taylor.
Yeah, he's amazing. And,
Amazing.
And he's definitely been stepping more into the religious and spiritual side as well. Like, he's always been that way, but like now more publicly. But also, on the business side, like I actually was an early client of his back in 2016. So I was in my college dorm room and I get on the phone. Well, I see one of his early webinars. And I get on the phone. This is also back in his early days. So he actually got on the phone with me as like a potential client, which is kind of funny. Like if like Taylor, he's built like 100-person sales teams, right? So
yeah, like you can't get on the phone with him right now. You can't.
Yeah, exactly. So this was like this is the early days.
I love it.
I get on and and I tell him everything that I'm doing, and he said, "Hey, like it sounds like you have a lot of things that are going well." Like I was at that point, I decided to do this myself. I was doing YouTube ads for these different apps, but he said, "There's a lot that you can learn." And I was talking about him with this coaching program. He's like, "If you do this, it's going to change your life forever." And I was like, "Wait a second." Like, all right, wow, okay. So I jumped in. Yeah, absolutely. And I ended up joining. That was his other business, traffic and funnels back in the day. Now he's got the Wealthy Consultant. And that was, him and another person, Chris Evans at the time. And so I joined that program and I learned so much about, how to build a business. I also learned a lot about mindset and, like all the different pieces that go into it. And so he's been a long-term mentor. I was in that old mastermind, basically like from then until, as long as that, kind of went there. And then, basically him and Chris, his former, business partner, they split up. They had a couple different things that, kind of happened there that they decided to, go and they faced their, and that's also one of the things I love about Taylor too. He's faced some of his own challenges and he's open about that and sharing that. And so now he's got his new business, The Wealthy Consultant. I was actually just out literally last week in Nashville with him, there at that event. So, which is cool. So, Taylor's been a mentor for a long time and he's, really amazing. And also his growth too is like to see, all of that, both on the business side and also individually is very inspiring. And so, And so him, and then I've also had some other, amazing mentors as well. Alex Sharfin is another great person. And he basically, really taught me a lot about operational structures of my business. And, there was a time a few years ago where we had scaled so fast that we were facing some operational challenges. We were number 60 on the Inc. 5000 list, the fastest growing companies in America. We scaled 6,052% in 3 years. And when you do that, things break. So
things break. My
absolutely
heart is
break.
racing for you right now. I'm like,
I know. So, so I work with it, and that was a time that I was very stressed, and and I was able to work with him, through that, and and obviously a lot of other, mentor, Roland Fraser supported a lot, and there's a lot of different people that have impacted. I can't really necessarily say every single one,
sure.
but a lot of amazing people along the way for sure.
And sometimes we never even. Sometimes it comes through books or podcasts or the people that have helped you build. But I heard a common theme, and I want to ask you about it. One is that when you first started YouTube, you were like, it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't as well known. Like I kind of got in ground floor. And then you were talking just barely about Taylor. And you were like, I was like an OG. It's like one of the first people. I got on the phone with him, like all this kind of stuff. And I think sometimes people step into the world of YouTube and they think, Aleric, like I missed the wave. I missed the wave. I'm competing with, I can't compete with ad budget. I can't compete with size. Can't, like all that kind of stuff. Like, when is it too late to jump on a platform like that?
That's a great question. And it's never too late to get in. I think that the thing is, there's a couple different things that are happening. There is a massive opportunity early on, but there's also a difficulty and potential risk that, the platform or the mentor or whatever that you choose, may not be the final one that you need. Right. And obviously I'm a huge believer that everything that I invest in or do, like, again, it's working, for me. So I'm going to learn from it. But again, there's a little bit more risk. So there's more risk, but also, more reward. So it's basically like, high risk and reward. And so over time, like, basically the risk is going to potentially go down, but the easiness will potentially go up because there's going to be a proven method. So with me, and like early on with YouTube ads, I had to learn myself. So for instance, back when I started getting into YouTube ads, there was literally, people don't realize this, not an algorithm to optimize ads automatically based on performance on YouTube when I first started doing it. It was all cost per view ads. And you could see what converted, but it would not manually optimize. Now, Facebook actually had that at the time. There also were other versions inside of Google that had that with like Google, with search and things. But when it came to YouTube, it was TrueView. They shifted it to TrueView for action when they did add it a few years later. But in the early days, I was the algorithm because I had to go in and see, oh, this worked, this didn't work. And that's actually how I got really good. And some people ask me, well, how do you understand the algorithm, so well today? And I even created an AI ad targeting software, keywordsearch.com, that, helps target and do all that. Well, it's because at one point I was the algorithm. I had to go in and actually like manually optimize these different campaigns. And so it was harder, but now things are easier, especially with a proven process. So essentially you don't have the first mover advantage, but you have the documented, proven strategy, which is of course what we help people with, advantage. Same thing for something like working with a mentor like Taylor, right? In the early days, you might be able to get in early, and I definitely have a closer, relationship with Taylor directly than people who might. Although again, like Taylor's very gracious with the way he works with a lot of people. So even just at this last event, like he's always talking to all. Anyway, so but that being said, like I've known him for a long time. I got in early. I also learned some of his strategies early. That being said, that was also at a time that, and it's kind of interesting because I didn't really know, but like all the ins and outs, but also that's the time like before he became like known as the person he is today. So being able to work with him as a mentor early on, as he was still, kind of building up. when he had like a smaller, business that then I even had ended up, getting like a few years after, and his grew and mine was also growing too. But it's kind of interesting. It's like he was at a spot where, that was like, I think still his first year or year and a half in business. And so it's like one of those things where it's like you get in early. And so I think that later on, you'll have the benefit of knowing, oh, this is a proven mentor, a proven process. Same thing with people who work with us, right? It's like, now it's very clear, and I'm not trying to tout myself too much, but like basically like we have a lot of track record. We have different things. Like if people are looking to learn YouTube ads, and we've also super refined the process. So we got it down to a science when clients work with us. And so there's a massive advantage to people working with us now. And there's a big advantage to our early clients that came in at the early days of YouTube and the early days of us diving in, and we were able to, help them take advantage of it being earlier. Maybe it wasn't as robust or built out as it is now, but it was the early days, so there's a big blue ocean. So that's kind of the way I would look at it. It's definitely not too late, and there's people all the time going on YouTube looking things up. Also, now is a better time because it's less about subscribers, it's more about individual videos. So this is just a last answer or the last piece to your question.
Yeah.
We are in a resurgence of massive opportunity on YouTube because YouTube is now tailoring things towards individual pieces of content. AI is watching the content, trying to contextualize what are people looking for. So if you learn how to craft videos the right way, you can see a lot of success.
Wild. Absolutely wild. And your perspective on, is it too late or how do I dare jump on early? That has been the cleanest, most inspiring perspective I've heard on that kind of thing, right? Because I think there's a temptation to get inside ourselves. Oh, I've missed the wave, or, oh, this is too much of a risk, or whatever it may be. So with that same line, there's something really creeping in. Creeping is the wrong word. It's called AI, right?
Yeah.
It's called AI. And I know that you are offering trainings on how to create YouTube ads using AI, right? I've done my research, right? It's like you're helping people learn how to do that. And so when you see AI entering the game here, what kind of shifts do we need to be having as people who belong on YouTube about what impact AI is going to have and how that's going to work in our favor?
Yeah. So I think the big thing is it's definitely the time for people to jump into AI to have that early moving advantage. So that's actually where you have the first mover advantage, is jumping into AI, because maybe in our world, entrepreneur business, especially online business, people got to remember, like, something, you're in a bubble with the online businesses because there's still a lot of businesses that haven't even fully gone online. And so then of that, obviously there's a certain section of people, probably, I know people I spend a lot of time with, and I would, assume probably yourself as well, and maybe the listeners or viewers spend time with a lot of people that are using AI very consistently. But there's a lot of people that aren't using AI, or the most advanced they get is just asking ChatGPT some questions like it's a Google search.
Right.
There's so much more with AI. And if you're leveraging AI in this way to create video ads, you are in the top, 5% of people, especially business owners, and really like 1% of all people, right? That are leveraging AI. And so you have a massive advantage. What we're finding is really interesting, and I think you're going to find this very interesting too, is that there's a difference with an AI hook to pull people in versus AI being the full video. So we're talking about an AI video. What we're finding is that AI hooks followed by a person talking, a real person, not AI for the rest of the video, is actually performing the best. What's performing the next best is just a human, just a person, no AI at all. And then the worst is just a purely AI video, where it's all AI one after another.
Really?
And it's very interesting. And here's why I think it is. The AI hooks people. It pulls people in. There's a video. I've got a couple. I'll give you a couple examples. So one, I've got like a business owner wearing a suit going down a roller coaster. And on the front of the coaster, it says the marketing roller coaster. And he's like, my lead costs are going up and down all over the place. It's like a marketing roller coaster. And then it cuts to me. If you feel like you're on the marketing roller coaster, I'm going to show you how you can use the power of YouTube ads to get more consistent leads and clients, et cetera, et cetera. There's another one where it's me as a like medieval king, like walking down like medieval like kind of area, and I've got like a YouTube logo, on my clothes and stuff. And, I'm dressed as like a king, at a crown, everything. And I'm walking down the street. I say, if you're not using AI video ads, you're practically living in medieval times. And so that's a good one. And then it cuts to me. And so, a couple good ad hooks, but then it cuts to a real version of me where I am then delivering a message and talking and connecting. That's performing the best. Just a version of me, like the kind of classic YouTube ads I've been teaching for a long time. That's the second best. And the worst is when it's only AI. So imagine that AI hook, then another, like an AI version of me talking about like how you can use YouTube
Right.
and you can do. And I think the reason for that is subconsciously. I don't even think people are conscious. Subconsciously, you're wondering, who is this company? Like, who actually is behind this? Is there a human behind this? Anybody can put together this AI. I think it's very interesting. And like, I don't think everybody's thinking that way, but I think that subconsciously people are, because that's like the thing that shows me, is like, wait a second, why is this purely AI ad not working as well as some of these other ones? And then we had kind of our best performing normal ads, but what's working the best is an AI hook. The reason for that is it captures attention. It's the first 8 seconds. Google VO hook pulls people in. Then you have a human talk and connect, and you have the best of both worlds. The AI allows you to rapidly test as many different, hooks. It's creative, it's eye-catching, but then it cuts to a person delivering a message because people still want to buy from people. And I think that's a really valuable, insight that at least I've seen based on what's happening right now.
Well, and I would imagine when you say what's happening right now, that's like literally what's happening right now. That may not have been even 6 months ago, right?
Oh,
like
100% in the last
right?
3 months. Yeah, Google VO3. So we're on the cutting edge all the time.
I believe it.
Yeah, we have, and also like I always want to share, like I've been doing, and it changes too. So like depending on when people watch this or whatever, that might be different. But I'm hosting like a viral AI ads like workshop next week, and I did one a month ago, and the changes, but even in 1 month, is remarkable. And and sometimes I'll also just do YouTube ads workshops, but this one's specifically around viral AI. I'll usually do a workshop at least every like couple months. So there's always something coming, and I always want to like give as much value as I can to showcase that to people. But with AI, it's very fascinating. And then when it comes to targeting, there's big opportunities to target. And that's actually where I created my own AI ad targeting software. That's the keywordsearch.com that does AI ad targeting for YouTube and Google ads. You can just put in your website. It scans the entire site, finds what people are searching for on YouTube, searching for on Google, websites they might be going to. And then you can just choose which ones you want. And in one click, sync it over to Google ads.
Oh my word. And listeners, we'll make sure we link everything below so that you don't feel like you have to Google it or search whatever. Like we'll make sure it's all linked below. And I think that you bring up an interesting point about the speed of the changes that are happening, right? And the human condition can kind of like I'm going to mess it up, or I'm going to miss it, or drink from the fire hose. And when you say we are on the cutting edge, you are excited.
Oh yeah.
You are excited. And so where some people may be like, AI is taking over my job. And I write webinars for a living, right? And when you start to look at AI, it's like, okay, what's the opportunity here? What's the opportunity here instead of how am I going to be replaced? Like, what is your view of AI?
I think that's the big thing, is looking at what's the opportunity, how can we leverage it to do more. I think there's an optimist and a pessimist view of looking at AI. Sure. And I think that the pessimist view is saying, okay, if this is the output that you're currently doing, right? Let's say this is the output that you're currently doing. The pessimist view is, if in the past we needed this to do this, and now we only need this to do this, well, then all these people are going to get fired from their job, or not fired, but like let go or whatever. Not fired, fire is the wrong word, but like let go, right? Or these people are going to lose their job, and you could do this. So, if you think about it as even as like, let's say you've got, a webinar copywriter or whatever, right? It's like, okay, maybe in the past you needed, 3 or 5, let's say, and now you need 1 to do the same output. But here's the flip side. What an optimist looks at is they say, I have this input. I have 5 copywriters. Now I can do all of this, 5 times as much output, or 5 times the quality. Maybe it's the same number, but you can actually supercharge the quality. So for instance, we've got copywriters on our team. We got our senior, YouTube or senior YouTube ads copywriter, but he's also been a copywriter for 2 decades. And he studied, under, all the different, Gary Halbert, all the different great people. And so essentially, at first, it was like a little skeptical about like, kind of diving into all this, but then diving in and walking through with that. Now he's like one of the biggest advocates for leveraging AI. And here's why. Because now what we can do is he can copy chief and refine the AI that we have that allows us to come up with the first, all the way to 80%, YouTube ad scripts, VSLs, some of these different things. So in the past, we used to not do, VSL scripting for clients unless they paid, thousands and thousands of additional dollars, because it would be an extra thing. And even then we didn't like to sell it because it would take time away from our copywriters that needed to spend time creating all of our YouTube ad scripts. Well, now we have our copywriters touch every script, and the AI does a great job getting 80% of the way there. It's kind of like what you used to have on the junior side of, copywriters. Now we can still have people like that, but, they could be, people that are learning how to be that senior copywriter to proofread, right? So it's kind of one of those things. But now our senior copywriter is able to go in and proofread that and then apply their magic to it to get it ready to then be able to, hand off to clients. And then we can now do that with VSLs as well. And we could do that with landing page copy, and we could do that. And so now we basically are able to touch so much more of our clients' copy and also make it great because AI takes it to 80% and our senior copywriter takes it to 100. And the combination of that also, it's not just any AI. We have trained our own fine-tuned model off of the back of an LLM, but like we've fine-tuned it with our top 400 YouTube ad scripts, categorized by industry, categorized by what we see, depending on are they sending a webinar, are they sending to a VSL, are they, doing this or that. And we now have all those pieces, and we've refined it so much over time that it's going to write a script the way that we write scripts in a first draft. And then we're going to get to come through and do the final edits, which, by the way, we can then feed back into the machine to make it even better.
Oh, it's inspiring. And it just shows, I love how you said, here is how an optimist looks at it. Okay. Do you have moral resistance to AI?
That's a very interesting question. I think that there are some concerns with AI, and I think that it's not related to the way I'm using AI, in my opinion.
Sure.
I think that's not the way that business owners, so I don't have moral reservations with how I am using AI because of the view that I have here.
Sure.
But I do think outside of that, there are concerns as a whole for, almost like humanity as like an existential.
That's what I mean.
So
I'm
think
curious.
That I have concerns. I don't have moral concerns with how I'm currently using it, or also how other entrepreneurs can use the tools that are presented to them. But I think it's actually more where AI could go when it gets to the full like artificial general intelligence and then super intelligence. And I've definitely read some things that are concerning. So there's like the AI 2027 report. I've
watched it.
Yeah, it's there's a video on YouTube, really good video, although it's a scary video, and a breakdown. And I think that's the thing that's scary, because also both outcomes kind of seem scary. It's like, okay, the AI takes over, or the governments control the AI, but then the governments control this super huge thing, which, it's like, okay, like, all right, because that's a lot of trust, to have there in the government. So anyways, like, I think that's the thing that I don't really have an answer for. And I also I don't really even know how to fully think about it. And I think sometimes a lot of people get caught up thinking about things that are outside of their control. Now, it doesn't mean when things are inside of your control. So if you have an opportunity to make a change, especially when it comes to like challenges out there in the world, like I'm a huge believer in, finding worthy causes and charities to donate to. If there are things that you are genuinely concerned about when it comes to, challenges in the world, and you want to, speak up about that, or use your platform for that, or, support something, then, by all means, right, there's opportunities there. That being said, when it comes to worrying, right, there's a quote I really like. Actually, this is something that my dad told me, is that worrying is a tax on a debt you may never owe, right? And so it's like a tax on a debt you may never owe. So basically, if you think about it, it's like you're worried about this thing that may never even happen, and it's taking up that space in your mind. So instead of that, I think just seeing what can I do that aligns with my morals, and even having conversations like this, and then also focusing on what is in my control, and also just believing, right? It's like, there's it's going to, it's going to work out, right? There's a greater plan here. It's going to work out, and I don't know how or what, and there might be dark times, hopefully not as much, but at the same time, like it'll all work out, in the end.
Oh, I love it. I'm like, when are we going to get your parents on the podcast? I want to interview parents. They seem so wise to me. I'm like, it would be an entire hour and a half of just great quotes, I think, from two great humans. I'm fascinated with this idea of like, okay, things are going to work out, right? And I'm not going to worry about it. And one of the things that we really parade here on the podcast is, what do we have control over to build the life that we feel called to, right? And how do we increase autonomy? And you're obviously in the YouTube world, and you can bring this in whatever way seems appropriate to you. But when an entrepreneur is in a space of, okay, next level, new devil, let's go, let's figure this out. How do they know? How do they make decisions? How do you make decisions in your business on YouTube's the route, or JVs are the route, or funnels are the route, right? Like, don't listen to any marketers ever, because they'll just tell you their way is the way. But how do you make decisions for the direction of the business?
Yeah. So I think that what you really need to do is look, and everybody's going to have their own way of making decisions. So I think you need to figure out what is the way that you make the best decisions, and and then really embrace that. I think the way that I make a lot of decisions is I try to look at a risk reward, and I want to do something called risk arbitrage. So I actually learned, so going back to it's actually kind of funny. It was a very brief interaction, but it was very pivotal with Jay Abraham. I was at an event in 2019. I was in Paris. It was the Paris Mastermind. Just to set the frame, it was at
the
Ritz-Carlton Paris. And they had just finished telling us about the golden goose. There's a golden goose, and and all this stuff, and everything's gold. Think of like if you say Ritz in America, like just think of like, all right, like even crazier, in Paris, next level. So definitely recommend checking out. But anyways, so we're in this like ballroom, and actually Taylor's there as well. So it was at his event that Jay Abraham was the special guest, like kind of co-host for the event. And so essentially Jay Abraham was there. And at the time, I remember in my business, I was doing, I was doing around $200,000 a month, and I was running like 20. I'm using these numbers, by the way, just to say like what he told me. So not to brag about numbers or do whatever. And I was spending about $25,000 a month on YouTube ads. And I had a salesperson at the time, and I was worried about hiring another salesperson. And it was the salesperson and me taking calls, and we were kind of maxed with our calls to a degree. I was worried about hiring another salesperson, because also the salesperson I did hire had a lower enrollment rate than me. And so I was like, and so I remember asking him this question. I forget exactly how I framed it, but I basically framed it in this way. And what he told me, remember, this is like 2019. So this is, years ago. So this is how I learned and became who I am today. And I'm sure also I look back on this, I'm going to have so much more growth, in the future. But basically, anyways, so I was sharing that, and he said, and I was asking him what to do, and I was like, I don't know if I should scale these ads or if I should hire another salesperson. And he addressed the salesperson side first. That kind of the classic stuff. They're never going to be as good as you, but you're not scalable. You need the thing that's scalable. So you got to look at the metrics of what your salesperson is doing. And then what he said was, he said, you have a risk arbitrage situation, right? If you right now, you're asking if you should spend more on ads. I think what you should do, or hire a salesperson. You hire a salesperson, an extra salesperson, and you double your ad spend. And let me show you why. if you're going to spend $50,000 on ads next month, what is the best case scenario, best possible case? No challenges at all. I'm like, well, the best would be we double our revenue. It would be 400,000. I don't know if that's going to happen. There's some diminishing returns. We also have the other salesperson might not be as good. He's like, yeah, okay, that's okay. But that's the best case. It's another 200,000. What is the worst case? And, I said, well, honestly, I don't really see any, like, worst case. We just, maybe the salesperson's really bad and maybe we like recover like the 25K, like we recover it, it's like kind of a wash, right? It's like, we basically make 25K. And he's like, yeah. And the absolute worst case is you can't even make it work the 25K and you lose 25. So he's like the absolute. So I wasn't even thinking about that, but he was like, that's the absolute worst case. Is you lose 25. The best case is 200. Now, what's the most likely best case? And I said, well, it's probably maybe like between 100 and 150,000 we might do. It depends on the close rate of the person we bring in. Okay. And what's the most likely worst case? I said, honestly, like, I'd be even surprised if if we do any less than like a 2x on that. So 50K. So he's like, all right, so you're saying most likely you invest an extra 25,000 and you believe most likely you're going to make between 50 and 150,000. And best case, it's 200. Worst case, you make 25, you break even, or absolute worst case, you lose that 25K. He said, you have a risk arbitrage situation. They wouldn't give you those odds in Vegas,
No kidding.
And it changed my entire perception on everything. Wow. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to go ahead and do that. And sure enough, I don't think it was immediately that next month that I raised the ad spend. So the next month I did raise the ad spend. I didn't go straight I didn't double it to 50. So I was hiring the salesperson. And then, but by the month after that, I did go to 50 and we did over 300,000, and change. So it was kind of similar to that. There was some diminishing returns. It was, or getting the salesperson all set, but it was a huge, like 25 to make an extra 100. It's like, all right, let's do that. And then from there, over the course of that, the next couple of years, I was able to scale the business up to over $1 million a month and basically 5x the business from that point. And that played a big role in, basically it was from 2019 to, actually, yeah, it was from that 2019 to 2022 was our 6,000% growth. It was, a 60x. And a lot of that was in 2020 and 2021. So there you go.
I'm blown away by the numbers, and I'm grateful you'll share numbers so we can really, really dive into what was happening. And do you attribute just some really good timing there with COVID?
I think that there is good timing, and I hate to say, because again, I know a lot of people, had some challenges. And also, it's interesting because I think certain things were overblown and maybe we didn't need to do, but also there were people that either lost their lives or had serious health issues and things like that. And so we're being respectful of that, and also understanding that, hey, maybe like there's a reason I moved to Austin, Texas. I used to live in Massachusetts. I was in Boston, Yeah. And so, and I wanted, so anyways, around, so in early 2021, I moved out here and, surrounded by a lot of great entrepreneurs. But at the same time, like, one of the things is basically, I think that for online businesses, there is no denying that it really was a boost to online businesses. People were going online. They had to go online. So we saw a lot of that. And we were there to support the businesses, and I was ready to scale up at a time that other people were kind of scaling back. So we embraced that, and it was so it was like that was my so I remember somebody asked me, like, what was the your like COVID hobby, and I'm like, well, it was scaling my business. I didn't make the sourdough bread. I was like focused on growing my business, and but yeah, so it was good.
Well, I love it. And I love hearing the timing of it.
Yeah.
If you ever heard in business, I'm sure you have with the rooms you've been in, that what got you to this point will not get you to this point.
Yeah.
And you talk about growing by 6,000%, and you're like, Sarah, things broke, right? And that there are different levels to business. What do you think was the hardest level for you to crack?
So I think the hardest thing for me to crack was the shift in the high ticket space to a recurring space. It's actually very interesting because that's all
Really?
Taylor is teaching now. But that honestly was the hardest thing, not because it was, not because it's a hard concept, but because when you're at scale, it's hard to shift while the boat is moving. So the way that I put that is like this, right? Scale up a lot. What I realized was as we had scaled, we had built a precarious business because every month, doing over $1 million a month, but like every month we had to remake all of our sales from scratch. We had a few payment plans, but we weren't really doing recurring revenue because we were especially training a lot of business on how to do it. And like a few like agency clients, but that's not the bulk of it is helping businesses set up and implement YouTube ads and then train them on, their team on how to run it long term. And there's different versions of that. There's like a hybrid version that's kind of got a hybrid, like some done for you elements and one-on-one. There's like one-on-one, and then there's group coaching. And so anyways, we were selling all like 3 and 6 month packages. And then if people wanted to work with us longer term, we do like a 12-month, but like as like a mastermind. But the idea was like, let's collect as much, upfront as possible, because that's what everybody says to do.
Right.
And the problem is at a certain point, you realize that you grow your expenses as a company so much, but you're reliant on all new sales. And then you become addicted to it, because if you're collecting everything up front, basically you need to keep doing that. If you say and decide that you want to shift to recurring revenue, which we've done, and that's why I say it's the most challenging thing, is if you shift to recurring revenue where you're used to getting things up front, but then you shift to say, I want to build a more sustainable long-term business where I grow MRR, how do you do that in such a way that you also protect and mitigate your downside risk from that, pulling off the Band-Aid and making the shift to a more recurring revenue? So that was probably, that's a, concise way of saying like, that was a very challenging thing. And some of the lessons that I learned, right, is, basically you can have a little bit of both. So we, and we had to learn that. So we shifted just straight to recurring. That's actually one of the things that Taylor teaches with revolving price. It's really good. So basically it's like a higher upfront and then a recurring over time. And then also really just absolutely diving into not just client results, which we've always been super focused on, but client experience. How do they feel? Really having them, know, like feel like they're known and heard, seen and heard, is really important. And so anyways, there's a lot of different things that we did to shift it to more of a long-term, and also adding other things in, not just YouTube ads, but YouTube channel growth. And, and even bringing on somebody to help with meta ads too with our clients. Kind of funny for me because I ran all my ads off of YouTube versus meta. But like the thing is, some of our clients wanted that. And so, it's like, all right, well, let's do what they're looking for. And so now, and I think that the next hurdle that I'm looking at is actually shifting into my new kind of branding and positioning around video more holistically. And so this is like, so that was the mountain that I've just kind of conquered, is shifting to recurring revenue. And it took longer than, it took like a couple of years, honestly, like to make that
really do it,
to really do it and do it right. Now the next thing is not being just known for YouTube ads, which is, it's scary because it's kind of safe. It's like, I'm known as, the YouTube ads guy, but I think there's so much more that I'm meant to be. And that's where, I'm publishing my first book, which is really, I'm so excited about this. I've been working on it for 3 years. It's called Video Authority, The Art and Science of Converting Viewers into Clients. And it's coming out very soon, videoauthoritybook.com, but it's coming out very soon. Like literally in the next like few weeks here. We're doing a soft launch, and then we're going to do kind of a bigger one later with like the ebook and online versions. But it's very, very excited for that. And I really want to be known as the video marketing person. And I think that there's an opportunity there. And I think that, again, like I know there's going to be work involved, and anytime you're shifting your brand, that's a long-term play. So it's not like it's going to happen overnight, but I think a few years from now, people, when they think video marketing, I want them to, think of me. right? And that's, by the way, that's not to put anybody else down, but that's my personal goal on that
for
side.
sure. And you said you're 28 right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so you're 28 and you're like, I've dominated the YouTube ad scene, ads outreach. This is great. But you feel called to something different. Was there any other reason why you decided to expand into video authority instead of just like, why not hunker down? Why not sell? Why not? Again, how have you made this decision?
I think that the big way that I look at it is I know that things are changing so much, especially with AI and with all of that. Like, I know that there's an opportunity to really help people with video, which is the core of like what I've been excited about for a long time. I've been niched into these individual things, but video marketing is what I love to talk about and speak about. And, you know, I think that I have things to say and I have the ability to help people with that. And it's also fun to be on the forefront of that. And with AI video and with, you know, some of these different things that are happening. And so, you know, that I think plays a big role into that. And just, you know, it also sometimes things that seem scary, but you feel like you should do it and you kind of feel called to it. Exactly. You know, it's like, that's the thing that you should do. And so, yeah, there you go. That's like, that's really, you know, where that came from.
It's amazing. And like to like tie it all together, that's what you were inspired by when you were in high school. Technology and helping people and kind of holding the video camera all the time, right? And so it's like you are continuing, here is a new way, here is a fresh way, here's something that excites me. And I deeply admire your ability to continue to push the envelope and to evolve. I think it's hugely refreshing. And I think it's something that we can all take a lot of notes on and say, where am I pushing myself, right? Where am I feeling stagnant and what is next for me? So bravo for you. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I feel like we have been so blessed to sit with you today, right? You are the YouTube ad guy in my brain, and there is so much about you, right? There is so much about you, so much depth, so much, charisma, all the good things, but the optimism and the viewpoint and how do I reframe and how do I take advice from mentors to keep this thing going? And what do I do when I feel restless? And so many deep lessons, right? So I just have a couple of ending questions for you as we end our time together. We ask all of our people that come on here just kind of some rapid fire questions. So are you ready to go?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. The hardest one for sure is, what is one book every entrepreneur should read?
The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. It is phenomenal. And, you know, obviously I love his other books too. Start with Why, Leaders Eat Last, but The Infinite Game is amazing. And it really can show you a lot of what we talked about here, you know, plays into that.
Incredible. You like knew it. Most people have to like look behind them and go, what am I reading? I don't even know. Oh my gosh. That was so good. That was so good. Okay. Second question is what is something on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
On my bucket list. Okay. So on my bucket list, I guess non-business related would be to go to Japan, and I'm planning a trip to go there. I've wanted to go for a while. Like, it's just it's a cool place. It's like, you know, area anyways, like it's very interesting. I also love Japanese food and sushi and all this. And I hear it's like phenomenal over there. So going over there on my personal bucket list, and then on my business bucket list, I would say on the business bucket list, yeah, that's a very interesting one. I mean, I want to speak in a stadium, so that's on it. The biggest room I've spoken in has been 2,000 people. Actually, no, 2,500. So I had a big event in Germany, in Frankfurt, Germany. The This Is Marketing event. That was like 2,500, and then I had an event, Destiny Fest in Toronto. Those 2,000. I'm actually about to speak at the next one in a few weeks here, about 2,000 people. But I have not spoken in a stadium. So I think that's on my bucket list as well, is, you know, like, to go and do that.
I've got to introduce you to someone after the call. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you.
This is kind of exciting. That's great.
Hey, if we can make that happen, that would be amazing.
I know, my brain is clicking a little bit right now.
All right.
Okay. Final question. Okay. And maybe a little bit more sensitive in nature to you. Okay? Yeah. Imagine yourself at the end of your life. I know you're 28. Not even close, right? But imagine yourself at the end of your life. What do you hope those you love most say about you? Yeah,
that's a very deep question. So what I hope that those who I love the most say about me is that I truly impacted the world for the better and really helped and created a big ripple effect of impact. So not just the people I directly, was able to impact, both through business and also through, like I love, donating different like charities and things like that. And, but not only through like those, but also the people that get impacted through a ripple effect of that, especially on the business side. There's so much ripple effect from if I go and I help a business that is going out and doing good in the world, right? Like maybe they're helping people with their health, or, they're helping people with their businesses or whatever it is, then they're working with all their clients and they're being impacted, and they have their employees and they have families and they have, so on and so forth. And so I think there's a really big ripple effect. And I want to know that, that is something that, was, kind of came to fruition. It was a big ripple effect of impact, the people that I was able to support and touch.
I love it. And I would say you are well on your way.
Oh, thank you.
Well on your way. Incredible. Well, thank you again so much for being here with us, Aleric. It's just been absolutely amazing, speechless in a lot of ways, about the life that you've already built and then the life that you are aiming to build. So thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.